2. How's everybody going today? Kick things off. I'm going to throw the number out there. 347-688-2902. 347-688-2902 and Freedom Screen on Skype. For now, as it is Thursday, for right now, just until Sean calls in, he's ready to talk about what he wants to talk about. I'll let you be part of a call-in experience, and you can hop on the air, have a chat with me. If you're listening to Ghost in the Machine, you can maybe comment on anything that we had that I talked about today, that Johnny Don't Play talked about. If you didn't listen in, you missed it. Johnny Don't Play was my guest in the first hour. So I hope everybody's doing well. I got my court tomorrow morning. I thought it was today. It's actually tomorrow. Because I thought the 14th was a Thursday for some reason. Then I double-checked what day it actually was. And I was like, oh, okay, I got one more day. That's good. Hopefully I should have my extension of time that I need to get everything paid off on time without experiencing a penalty. Hold on a moment. And yes, I would like that. Hold on. I'm going to have... some help. That's good. There we are. And hopefully I should have my extension of time that I need. Hey there, I can hear myself to get everything paid off on.
Okay, there you go.
There we are. Hey, JP.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Well, I've been having great fun with my old electronics things and playing around with little microelectronics, Arduinos things they're called.
Okay.
It's fantastic. And it's all about, like, you know how security systems work?
Yeah.
You know, like beams and stuff like that. We're doing this thing, right? Jessica Morocco, who's one of my hosts on Wolf Spirit Radio, has been receiving this channel transmission from an Andromeda, from a character who calls himself Andronicus. And it's like a whole sci-fi series. I'll tell you, it's no kidding. It's really it's like a sci-fi series that is about the defeat of the reptilians.
Okay.
And it's essentially a channeled series of communications from this fellow called Andronicus.
Okay.
And what he was saying is that they have defeated who they call the Vinkala, which are the reptilians, and they used sound weapons. They used pulse sonar weapons and things like that. And it's fascinating what they're talking to, what he's talking to us about. And it's very much, and what he said is that, you know, like surveillance systems. You know how surveillance systems work with you got laser beams and you got light cells that tell whether the beam's been broken.
Uh-huh.
You know, stuff like that. He says that basically the Gray's Archonic grid is more or less like that. The Greys, they have a system very much like that, and they certainly got that on the moon, and which is why they were able to track, you know, when Neil Armstrong landed and they managed to meet him there. Mm-hmm. So, do we have a caller? We got 208.
208, you're on the air. 208, who dat? Where you at? Caller 208. Nope.
It's the invisible person.
That makes they thought this was the call to listen line. Too shy to speak.
Yeah. See, the thing is here's the thing, right? You know that little jingle? Oh, yeah, I want you to stop what you're doing. I can't remember the numbers, and I'll tell you why. And Hawk, please listen to this. This music is too good to be a background music, and I'm grooving along, and then I realized by the time it's that he's said the numbers, and they just didn't go in at all. I cannot remember these dial-in numbers for the call-in lines, which is probably why they're going, because 3902 there's an even easier number. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, you're talking about the one that gives you all the general kind of call-in information, that plug that we have on the station.
Yeah, the jingle that starts off, I want you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Yeah,
And then Hawk talks about all these numbers.
Cool, like it's got that cool like guitar lick that da na 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 na. Yeah.
I go away. What's that word? I'm transported by that music. Hawk, your music is too good. You want something nice and bland, really bland music, so that people are not distracted from.
Hey, I get excited when I hear the Ghost in the Machine commercial. I love I love the riff that Hawk busted out for that one.
There you are.
Yeah.
Hello.
Captain
Hello.
on the bridge. Everybody to attention.
Lieutenant Commander, how are you,
Yeah.
Commander? How are things on
There you go.
the Area 5151 Vipers?
Good.
All good. Anyway, so joining the conversation now. How is everybody out there?
We are well.
Good. Okay, well, first off, I'm very sorry I'm late, and just
What's
needed
your
to.
excuse, boy?
Excuse was we're doing an event. Well, first off, I just flew in from Las Vegas.
And boy,
So,
our arms tired.
Yeah.
Boom.
Are tired, so flew in from Las Vegas. I went out to, well, this is just my weird active life. First off, I just needed to just get out of the house and get away and do some things, and I just crashed at kind of a bunch of dudes. It was, as I said, it was sort of like The Hangover meets Lord of the Flies, and I'd forgotten how stupid most of the people I know are, because they Steve, I just have to ask you this. Is everybody your age a drug addict? Everybody your age right now is a drug addict, aren't they? They're just all drug addicts.
Oh, well, wait. Well, what exactly are you equating as my age?
I don't know.
What do you mean by drugs?
Late 20s, early 30s.
I'm in my 30s now, so
Piles of weaponized cannabis, hallucinogenic.
look, everybody younger than me is on drugs. Everybody my age might be on drugs.
Yeah, Molly that just makes you want to just take off your clothes and rub your nipples with butter. It's just, it's,
the DEA and the FDA just approved ecstasy as a certain form of medication. So.
okay. All right.
Not
Well,
making that up.
No, I know. It's sort of that. But actually, I had something I wanted to. Let me see, something I had here for you. And actually, it's good that JP is here right now. So let me give you I was going to do this a little later in the show, but I had an excerpt from my book that the third chapter of Sands of Time that described a lot of the inside stuff about Area 51 and Area S2 and S3 and the new planes that they're flying out there. And there's a character in the book who's English by way of Australia as well, named Matthew Fassbender, and he's taking over a big chunk of the products, or had taken over a big chunk of the projects at 5-1 that had to do with time, that had to do with the Kronos projects, the Nazi Bell, etc. So while I had you here, hold on, we're going to cover a few stories here, but let me see if I can find it, and it's okay, here we go. All right, let me see if I can find you this just a quick excerpt to this. Oh, thank you. Somebody sent an Edgar Casey aspect for this. So at the end of the hallway was another set of blast doors. However, standing at full attention at this end were 6 Marines in full combat gear carrying rifles. A pedestal sat. Oh, I don't want to tell that one because this is a speech that he gives. But Admiral on deck, later Commander. He goes for a ride in one of the new Vipers, which is one of the new. As Matt comes in, he says, "Those are spacecraft, flying saucers, UFOs, the real effing deal." And then he comes in for a ride, and it's. Let me see if I can find you that part. So, all right. Well, I'll find you that in just a second. So, the other thing that I did when I was in Las Vegas, other than write and work on the book, and I get really weird when that happens because I just don't want anybody bothering me. I don't want, I don't want to see how cute the cats are. I don't want to have to scoop cat boxes. I just need to kind of get away and do that. So I'm compiling all this information, putting all this back together. Then, let me see, Wednesday night I went to a what's today? Thursday. Tuesday night, I went to this. There's a huge convention going on in Vegas. First off, I did not know that there was a massive Star Trek convention, a huge Star Trek convention that was actually happening at the Rio. And I only found that out today. Otherwise, I would have gone over to the Rio and gone to see the Star Trek convention there. But the other convention that was going, thank you. The other convention that was going was the Toastmasters International. Toastmasters International. And I didn't bring any bread, and I didn't even bring a toaster. But apparently this is a huge deal. I did not realize that when I went to this the day before, which was a pre-deal, they talk about how you become an accredited speaker, whatever that is, and that as an accredited speaker, apparently you get flown all around the world and you speak to people all over the place. And this is a massive thing in India right now because it's all about networking and improving your presentation and improving your speaking style. And I'm sort of sitting in the back of the room saying, okay, well, I already do this. Now I just need to figure out how to we need to figure out how to make any money doing it. Somebody's got to be making money somewhere. Mark Levine, who is always number one in this time slot. I've replaced him a couple of times in this time slot, but he's getting up giving all these speeches about, oh, we've lost our moral compass, thanks to Caitlyn Jenner. I'm like, okay, thank you, Captain Obvious. That's all great. So yesterday, the convention started at about 5:00, and if you have not been to Vegas in a while, and you realize that most of the Vegas Strip there actually started with Caesar's Palace, with a man named Jay Sarno, and Jay Sarno, who began Caesar's Palace. And by the way, it's not Caesar's Palace, as in Caesar owns a palace and Caesar lives here. It's Caesar's Palace because everyone is supposed to be Caesars. That's why there's no apostrophe in it. So we are all Caesars going to Caesar's Palace. And there's a little thing that you do when you go into Vegas is you go into Caesar's Palace and you touch the finger of Caesar, which is in the foyer as you come in, and then you have to go to the exact center of the dome, which is all lit, and you got to spin around a couple of times, and that's supposed to give you luck when you go there because that's where really where it all started. And my mother, for whatever reason, whatever mysterious weird thing going on in my mother's bizarre mind, took us on Easter break a couple of times to Las Vegas. And across the street from Caesar's Palace, there was quite literally a drive-in no-tell motel that was called the Jamaica Inn, as in the Jamaica Inn Man. And we would pull into this, you'd park your car right there, and we would check in, myself and this is when my mother was single, and just myself and my mother and my snotty little sister. And we would then, she'd say, well, put your swimsuits on, get your towels. And we would walk across the street, and basically she'd just sneak us into the pool at Caesar's. And so we just run around and have fun at the pool at Caesar's. Now, oddly enough, Caesar's Palace actually hired the famous boxer Joe Louis to be a greeter at Caesar's Palace. So for whatever reason, being a little kid, I became friends with Joe Louis's little boy, because we were both 8 at the time. So we became fast friends and good buddies and ran around Caesar's Palace and got to know Joe Louis, the famed fighter, fairly well. The only reason I mention all of this is because Caesar's Palace has gotten so huge, and all these gigantic casinos used to be owned by Harrah's. And Harrah's owned, I think, 7 of the casinos. Well, Harrah's has now been bought out by Caesar's Palace Enterprises, apparently. And they now also own the Rio as part of the whole Caesar's Palace complex. Now, there's rumors that they're going to be tearing down the Rio fairly soon and just building another gigantic Caesar's Palace tower. So the size, the sheer size of Caesar's Palace, when I thought this Toastmasters thing was going to be a couple of just boring yak festers, if you will, there were, and I'm not real good with giant numbers of people, of groups of people, but in the Octavian Ballroom, which is the largest ballroom they had a series of these Toastmaster speakers. And I would say low estimate, there were probably 5,000 people in this room. I don't know if it was possible to put 7,000 in, but I know it was the biggest ballroom I think I've ever seen. And it was jam-packed full of people. The last of the speakers was an Arab from Saudi Arabia in full-on gear, if you will, saying, have you ever seen a Muslim with showgirls? Have you ever seen a an Arab give a speech like this. He was very well spoken and it was very interesting. But it was one of those things where it was very incongruous that you would see the kind of speakers that you saw out there at this convention. Now, there was only one person that I knew there, and it was a woman named Judy Carter. And Judy, here in Southern California, I'm not sure if she does it or not, and it's immensely valuable if you ever get a chance to do it or meet her or do it in your hometown. She had a class where she was teaching stand-up comedy. And in this class, you would learn the essence of stand-up. You would put like an 8 to 12-minute routine together. She would coach you in how to sort of develop your brand and your character as a stand-up comedian. And then they would have a showcase at the Improv. And I'd sent so many of my friends through this thing, and it helps build confidence. It helps focus who you are and what you really want to talk about. But after that, and at the same time, we were working on this radio deal where we've got we have people that are finally going to do some syndication here, and they want me to do some kind of like space show or something and just pre-record it and have it be on. Now they also think they want to put me in like now I'll be pre-recorded, but they want to do this in the time slot of between 10 p.m. and maybe midnight to 2 a.m., which once again, in my opinion, nobody really listens to the radio late at night. You listen in the morning, which is the number one drive time, if you will, when you're listening to the radio. You listen in the afternoon, actually in drive time when you're actually there. So the 3 to 5 slot, which is prime time on the West Coast because you're listening to it in the afternoon, but it's also prime time on the East Coast as well because between 6 and 8 people are either eating dinner or on their way home or what have you. So anyway, so we nailed down the deal, and quite frankly, I got tired of staying where I was staying with all these guys in the clouds of pot smoke, if you will, and the hallucinogenics, and like I said, dudes rolling on Molly, and it really was. It was right out of instead of Tobacco Road, it was Flamingo Road. It was right out of a Steinbeck novel, and I just got sick of it. I got sick of scout surfing, and I'd actually finished up section 2 of 3 on Sands of Time. And that was basically I just wanted to get the hell out of Dodge. And also the Toastmasters thing, God bless you. I think it's all great. I think it's a great global organization. But let me give you some quick tips. Let me give you some interesting let me learn you stuff. Let me impart some wisdom upon thee. Okay, I've got a new motto now. And that motto is pessimists always see the glass half full. Pessimists always see the glass half empty. Optimists always see the glass half full. Sean David Morton at Strange Universe Radio says the glass just isn't big enough. There you go. That's my first new motto. My second new motto, and I will teach you something amazing that will help you in every aspect of your life, that will help you in all the things that you need to do, that will maybe help you become a talk show host or maybe help you become a better speaker or just get chicks by the truckload.
My breath is bated.
See, here we go. Now, you'll eventually figure out, and especially when you go to Toastmasters where they teach you how to talk. Now, had I stayed, because it was actually the whole thing, the speakers and everybody else was today, and I thought to myself, do I really want to sit through a day of people that are going to teach me how to talk and maybe, I don't know, make better money at it, I suppose, but become an accredited speaker. And apparently they have a world championship at the end of this because their convention's in Las Vegas. Next year, their convention is in Washington, D.C. And then the year after that, 2017, it's going to be in Vancouver. And as I told you, it's a big thing. There was 5,000 people in this room, easy. Maybe 7, but I have no conception of large crowds of people. I know Staples Center, when it's sold out, holds about 17,000 people. I know that Walt Frazier claims to have had sex with 19,000 women. That means Walt Frazier, on a sold-out basketball game at Staples Center, not only has had sex with everybody in the Staples Center, but there's 2,000 more people waiting outside, waiting to have sex with Walt Frazier. You can't have that much sex. That's all I'm saying. You're eating your breakfast cereal having sex. You're brushing your teeth having sex. Yeah, you're sleeping at night having sex. That's a 24-hour, 7 days a week job. So here it is. Here's the secret of it all. Interesting people, the Commander McBraggs of the world. Interesting people are they're the ones that are telling you the story. And well, of course, I shot the great white elephant in my pajamas. What he was doing in my pajamas, I'll never know. There was the perfect cartoon when I was a kid that describes interesting people. And JP would have never heard of it. It's fairly obscure, even if you're in the United States. But it was a cartoon called Commander McBragg. And Commander McBragg was, I think, part of the group of cartoons. I'm almost positive it was a group of cartoons where you had George of the Jungle, Tom Slick, that was like a funny racing thing with Grandma as the mechanic and all this, and Super Chicken. Does anybody remember any of those? Remember any of those?
Oh my God, no.
Nope.
Nope,
See,
that's totally out of my ball.
you were completely raised in another reality altogether. You had
I come from a different planet, maybe from a different galaxy, maybe a whole different parallel universe.
You had Danger Mouse, I think, when you were a kid. What cartoons did you have?
We had what on TV, or we had the Beano. Are you talking TV cartoons?
Talking TV cartoons when you were a kid.
All right. Oh God, no.
Did you have Danger Mouse? That's the only one I can think of.
Danger Mouse, yes, a little bit.
Yeah,
but we had things like Thunderbirds and Stingray and all that.
That's
stuff.
right. And actually, they're doing a live action version of that. But that you guys had ITC, right? ITC.
Yeah, that was the ones who made Jerry Anderson's people. Yeah.
And ITC was Thunderbirds, Fireball XL5, Stingray, I think, which was a submarine show, and they were all done. Stingray, and they were all done with puppets, with marionettes. We're everywhere. That means the signal for Strange Universe is pulsing. It's coruscating through your body as we speak right now. We're in you. We're actually in you because we're being carried through the web, through the internet. All right, now I was going to impart to you my wisdom. I was going to impart to you my secret for a successful conversation, which can take you very far, as Badfinger once said. A Apple Records reference. So here it is. And this is part of what I learned at Toastmasters. First off, the majority of people at Toastmasters are crushing bores. I mean, they're crushing bores. They also have a world championship for talking. So it's like, no, I rebut your preposition. Pow, work the body, right to the head. So they have some kind of contest. Now, I have no idea how you can have a contest for speech giving. I was on debate team in college, and I know that you had a topic. And depending on how well researched your topic was, people would they'd give you ridiculous topics like seatbelts, yes or no. Actually, we had a pretty good one, I think, when I was in college. We had should the United States withdraw from the United Nations? That was a pretty good one. But we had ridiculous. We had an abortion, which was pretty fun. We had because abortion's always entertaining because it's a bunch of men talking about a bunch of women's bodies and what do men know? That's why I hate female sportscasters. I hate women who are talking about football. I can handle it if you play volleyball or basketball because women can play those sports. But female sports, it's till you've had a 350-pound man tackle you, lay on top of you, and drill you into the grass. Well, wait a minute. Most of the women on Sports Center have probably had that happen to them. But anyway, so here it is. As I said, a majority of these people are just crushing bores. And here's the challenge, because you're just talking to be interesting. And people that are interesting and tell you stories about, well, I've done this and I've done that. It's kind of a form of it's a form of megalomania, really, or egomania. I'm not sure the difference between it. I guess megalomania would be you want to be aggrandized because you want power over others, as opposed to egomania, which is, I don't know, me. And coming from a family where my father, my mother, and my grandfather, my biological grandfather, was a jackass. My grandmother hated his guts till the day he died, and he was a clinical egomaniac. If you were not talking about him, I'm not talking about getting up and talking about different topics and discussing things or having a conversation. If it wasn't me, mine, my boat, my thing, my this, my that, he would go crazy. He would throw a tantrum like a monkey. And just like hurl psychological poop at you, if you will, if anything other than him ever crossed the dinner table, as an example. I mean, I went back to visit him once, I think, and he once again, he was, quote, the most interesting man. But you don't want to be interesting. That's the whole thing. Interesting people are boring. Interesting people are dull. Interesting people, you yawn and you just want to get away from them. But here's the secret. The secret to being sexy. The secret to, I don't know if you want to be loved, or the secret to successful conversation, or anything you want to do in your life, is that interested people are sexy as hell. Interested people take you along on a journey of discovery. Interested people say, you know what I saw today that just fascinated me? I'm so interested in this particular thing. And then it doesn't matter whatever it is. You're taking your audience, if you will, on a journey of discovery because you're interested. I'm fascinated by the universe in general. I'm a firm believer that the simplest of things astound the wise, as they say. And really, the more complex your entertainments are, sometimes the less advanced the society would be. I mean, I can be entertained with a yo-yo. I can be entertained understanding what everyone should understand is that as above, so below, as within, so without. Not only is there infinite bigness, but there's infinite smallness as well. That's why it was so fun to go see Ant-Man, as an example. The Ant-Man movie, I think, will become kind of a cult classic because at the very end of Ant-Man, I don't want to wreck it for you. Well, do I wreck it? Well, he gets really small. He's a guy who gets small, but at the very end he gets really small. And he goes into the quantum foam. He goes into the clay, to the stuff that actually manufactures universes, if you will. And you begin to understand also that the nature of our universe, all the laws of physics and all the laws of science and everything that we consider to be the laws of nature or the laws of the universe. First off, I just use nature instead of God. And all these various, what we call physics, when you get down to the level of where things are very small, physics disappears. Physics just don't work. Everything we know as science stops when you get into that quantum foam, that quantum field. That's because that's the clay out of which all these other universes are made. And we live in a ginormous multiverse that is parallel to each other. When you understand that the densest part of an atom in lead, as an example, one atom, if it was the size of, say, the Earth, and oddly enough, the Earth is the densest planet. The Earth is actually the densest planet in the solar system. It's also the only planet in the solar system that is not named after a Greek and or Roman god. Which, of course, you could say Ur, actually, U-R, and there was a place called Ur, and are we Earth? But anyway, but within that, if the Earth was the size of an atom, the next closest atom would be Alpha Centauri. It would be 4.2 light years away, approximately. So you have infinite space between atoms. Everything is kind of a dark matter, if you will. There's only about 3% of actual substance to the universe. So there we have it. So if you're interested in things, if you have passions about things, if you're interested, then other people will be interested as well. It's the lonely bunny theory. Here's the lonely bunny theory. And I had to make good use of this because as a kid, I didn't have a lot of friends. I got bounced to a lot of schools. My mother was crazy and just moved around a bunch. And so I was always going into new schools. I was always going to new situations. And I learned to just kind of entertain myself, is that if you can learn to be interesting and fascinating, or as Stella Adler, my old acting teacher, used to say, what is it about you that's interesting enough that people will pay money to see you do it? That's why she insisted that every day we read the newspaper. Every day we come to class knowing what's going on, knowing about current events or what's out there. Because I can't even tell you how many times she would say, here's a quarter, go to the pay, call your mother back home and tell her you're not going to be an actor today. And she was absolutely right. And all these actors and actresses in Hollywood that think you just don't have to know anything, the guys that get it, the real hardcore guys, they understand. You've got to be interesting. You've got to be you have to be an interested person. Interesting, they should all just be taken out and killed. Interested people lead you places, take you places, tell you stories, bring you along with their own fascinations, bring you along, get you involved in things that they're doing. I'm interested in organic chemistry as an example. So my family's in alternative cancer therapies. We've got alternative cancer clinics down in Tijuana. There's a new stuff called Briomyxol, which is curing cancer. And that alone, that interest, my sharing that with people, has been responsible probably for about, I think, 17 out of 18 people I know with cancer that are alive today. So, or my interest in the Constitution and interest in the bond process and all that. And I've perfected that and taken that to another level where I'm trying to help people with, get out of debt and pay off court cases and do all this. And it takes you, it's like the Jonathan Livingston Seagull concept that once you fly very high, that it's very lonely and it's very strange and it's a very peculiar feeling. But once you get there, oh, thank you. My lovely wife just showed up with lunch and all that stuff because I didn't have a chance to eat. And actually, we're here. Another reason back early from Las Vegas, outside of the fact that I just thought the Toastmasters thing was. It's all good. It's all great. It's a great way to network. It's a great way for business people to come together. It's a great way for people to learn how to speak well or better, should we say, so that they can increase their contacts and all that. But at the same time, I'm here. We have this thing called the Taste of Disney today, which is we're going to walk about, and there's all these wonderful restaurants in downtown Disneyland, and not Disneyland, but a place called Downtown Disney, and they're open to you coming and eating their food. And then what are we doing? And then tomorrow we're going to something called D23. And I'm going to try to actually report live from D23. D23 is Comic-Con for everything that's Disney. So now that Disney owns Marvel and everything that is Star Wars is all going to be announced at this convention this weekend. So I'll be there. So if you didn't have a chance to get to Comic-Con, which was really Comic-Con sort of all things, everything as far as kind of fantasy goes, this is the one for Disney. Now, another case in point here is that not only are the Star Wars films coming out, but apparently J.J. Abrams is also working on the next Star Trek movie as well. And apparently they're in the process of shooting, and Simon Pegg had a lot to do with this was
Sean, your audio.
Sorry?
Your audio keeps jumping in and out, and I think it's an audio connection thing. Could you check your microphone and make sure your wires are secure?
Okay, hold on. Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Make sure you're not you might be clipping
Oh, it's okay. Melissa just sat down and she was bumping my wire.
Okay.
So that she's wont to do.
I know. Women who bump your wire. How is she doing? Last time we heard, she was really growling at you.
All right. We good now?
Yeah, we good?
We're good.
How's Melissa? Everybody wants to know how Melissa is.
She's getting better. She's been on the antibiotics, and what's in the envelope? What's that? Okay, she's getting on antibiotics, and she finally went to the hospital last Saturday, and then she went back to the doctor, and they put her on some of the most advanced Z-Pack, I guess, for her lungs. So thank you for this, JP. So Edgar Casey remedy to sterilize the lungs: put a good brandy, a teaspoon in a glass bottle, inhale fumes through a straw. Do morning, interesting, morning, noon, and night for a few minutes. Also try gallium maltolate. So anyway. Oh, thank you. Yes, Commander Rick Bragg was part of Underdog. Thank you so much, of course. So thanks to Will Power, Commander Rick Bragg was part of the Underdog cartoon show. That's fantastic. So it was Underdog. I thought there was one more cartoon that went along with Underdog. I know there's Underdog, Commander McBragg. I know Bullwinkle, Fractured Fairy Tales, and Dudley Do-Right. So those were the three there. Then you had Super Chicken, Tom Slick, and George of the Jungle. Those are the three there. So you had Commander McBragg and Underdog. Thank you very much. That was
wasn't Peabody and Mr. Sherman Canadian?
No, that was part of Bullwinkle.
Yeah, and Bullwinkle was Canadian.
Bullwinkle was Canadian,
wasn't he?
No, they were from Frostbite Falls, Minnesota.
Well, that's where they were from, but I thought it was still made in Canada. It was just located. Just the characters were from Minnesota.
No, it was made in downtown Hollywood on Sunset Strip.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, they actually have the building where it was made has a big Bullwinkle J. Moose on top of the building, and there was a big thing where somebody just came in and bought the company. So there you go. So no, they were not. They were, even though he was a moose, it was not Canadian. All right, so let me see. Okay, so here we go. Actually, this is also for JP, and I thought you guys would appreciate this, or you folks would appreciate this. This is a section from my book, Sands of Time. The working title right now is the Isomer Protocol. And this has a lot to do with a treaty that we supposedly signed with a gang of extraterrestrials that keeps us on this planet. So there were several large craft in the cavern-like hangar, 3 sitting in one area and 4 in another. Toward the hangar doors were 7 operational standard naval fighters, the kind that are seen on carriers, but it was the knot of 4 that held Matt's attention. Dr. Matthew Fassbender is a fairly major character in this as well. As big as jumbo jetliners, except they were triangular in shape, and each side was a good 120 feet long. The thickness of the craft were nearly 2 stories, and the landing gear rods looked like vast redwood trees in diameter. The outside was coated with a strange film of some kind that reflected light in various ways. These were the Consolidated Naval Advanced Flight Design Platform Model 3, lovingly known as the Viper. It had been named by those working at A2. That A2, by the way, is a section of Area 51. It's complicated. 16 names have been submitted and then voted on. Viper 1. It was the end product of a program started in the 1950s where AV Rowe of Canada got the contract to design and build a circular craft. That craft was under the tutelage of John Frost, one of the finest aircraft designers that ever lived, the man that created the Avro Arrow for the Canadians, the most advanced fighter plane anyone had ever seen, and destroy the 4 prototypes. It seemed like some American aerospace companies were not up to speed on this design and had spent a fortune that they wanted a return on by selling a far less effective airplane to our European allies in NATO. The original project had been named the Avro Car. The comic, clumsy Keystone Cop-style black and white films that are still shown of it today were of a decoy model, underpowered, ill-equipped, and made to look foolish. The project was scrapped and Avro went on. The number 2 design that Frost had built from the original Schumann German design was fabulous. It had powerful flight characteristics and dynamic handling, and it could outperform any aircraft in the world by 1960. It had been bought by the group, and everything, including the models and templates, had been shipped to the old Groom Lake Airfield back when it was called the Docktown Strip in the early 60s. When Dr. Ted Humphrey, first came to S2 and saw the primary working models in the alien craft at the old A2 facility, he started a brand new program. The construction went at high speed at the A2 facility that they were presently in. They increased the staff, and then implementation by the Navy became part and parcel of the program. What had been a civilian effort had all the lines blurred, as always happens, when he brought the Navy aboard. They were getting all kinds of advances and new systems given to them without having to contract for any of them. Ted was getting naval personnel to man and work the base along with the design institute that was associated with it and the actual flight test facilities as well. A good number of naval brass had been inside Complex 1 and oohed and awed at the alien craft that were stored there, but none had ever been in Complex 2. They would have gone bat crap dog balls crazy if they had seen the naval space fighters there, and they would lose their collective mushy little minds if they couldn't get their hands on them. The outside of the craft was painted in gray with some small black lines forming scales like on a snake or a dragon. The front of the craft had 2 snake eyes painted on it, and directly in the middle a red viper's tongue was extended out with its fork probing the air. To Matt, it was something right out of Steven Spielberg or a Dean Devlin movie. Ted designed most of this, or at least rough sketched it, and enumerated what each part should do. We have a firm in Dallas that works on various design components, not knowing what the whole system looks like. Parts are manufactured all over the world and shipped here for final assembly. It's all modular, so any part can be replaced in a short time period. The skin is metal laminate that has flexibility and rigidity. Bob was standing behind Matt while talking to him. Effing beautiful, mate. Matt just stood there in sheer worshipful awe and stared at the Viper. Yes, it is, and this is just the outside. Bob motioned for Matt to follow him to the staircase that descended out of the bottom of the craft up into the floor. As they walked toward it, Matt could not resist reaching up and running his hand along the underbelly. It had the same feeling as the alien spacecraft that he had touched before, soft and firm all at the same time, like rubbing a dolphin's belly. The craft has 3 different power systems within it, 4 different drive components, and is actually nothing but a flying gun platform. It's not as badass or have as many, it's not as badass or have as many engines as the Virgil I. Grissom, the USS, which is our combat destroyer, but the ones that these babies carry are a whole lot more deadly, I promise you that. Bob had a note of pride in his words. What kind of drive system? Matt had not seen any exhaust ports at all while walking around it. It's an impulse system, somewhat like an ion drive for use inside the atmosphere. Something that T. Townsend Brown was working on for the news. It's silent and allowed good low-speed maneuvering in what we call heavy air. Once outside the dome's atmosphere, we can push it up to sublight speed with a mercury vapor magnetic engine. The mercury is running at super high temperature, much like the prototype we used to prove it out, which somebody called the Aurora. Then we have this baby, the big gun right in there, the super driver, a direct gravitational longitudinal wave power system that will push this craft into the trough. That is the part of space that has no matter, no waves, and, well, Bob shrugged, no, nothing in it. The only way to describe it is it's actually a place between space. That's where real distance disappears. On board flying this craft, it will seem like 2 days' journey to get out to Pluto, but in our standard time here, relatively, it is only about 10 to 14 hours. It's a curiosity of space and time that we have not quite got a handle on yet completely, but that doesn't mean that we don't use it all the less. They walked up the steps that were wide and solid, and once inside, they were in an area that was squared with 3 corridors leading off in different directions. Bob said, "Crew's quarters, mess space, sick bay, and the lounge is that way." Bob pointed down the hallway. "Tactical command, control, targeting, aiming, and defense is down there." They walked toward the front of the craft. This is the bread and butter space, though. They walked into a flight deck where nothing was recognizable to Matt. The chairs were recliners. There were no windows, only video screens of some sort. No instruments were visible, and the whole room was a bright, stark white in color. Ted had torn apart one of the scout craft almost exclusively by himself and worked out with some help how each part worked and what had to be done to replicate it. This here is the end product. I think we're still good. We still connected? All right. Or not. Okay. Anybody there?
We're fine.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. Ted had torn apart the scout craft almost exclusively by himself. And this is the end product. I came aboard about halfway through while this one was being built right here. He picked me for his assistant as well because I was holding a graduate engineer degree in aeronautics. I was so far out of my depth when I started on this, I thought I would never make it to the surface again. But that man, Dr. Theodore Humphrey, he gave a low whistle and shook his head in awe, is so clever he figured out how to make this thing work intuitively for anyone who could just fly a plane. Bob turned and watched the stairs retract up and into the belly of the craft. "Power on," he said, to no one, and suddenly Matt could feel a low vibrational hum under his feet. What exactly are we doing, Bob?" Matt looked strangely at the other man. "We are giving you a test ride in one of your wings craft, Commander." Bob sat down on one of the recliners and started to unlace his boots, and he motioned Matt to do the same. "We're going to take a ride inside an alien spaceship that the United States military has built at Area 51. After sure they have other songs on an album and everything." No, Beastie Boys were Jewish kids. They were bad Jewish kids. All right, so here it is. Once again, jump ships, jump around, jump ideas, jump whatever. So allow me to regale you with a brief sagacity, and I'm just reading you a chapter, kind of an exciting and interesting chapter of my latest book, Sands of Time Part 3. Now, Sands of Time Part 3 is standalone, whereas Sands of Time Part 1 and 2 both link together. If you get Sands of Time 1 and 2, which is it's all part of the Tempus Fugit's chronicles, if you will, because I think there's still more information. Sands of Time 1 and 2 takes place between approximately the mid-1950s all the way through to about the end of that saga in Book 2. It's somewhere around 1996, 1997. It's somewhere just as the Monica Lewinsky scandal is beginning to brew and percolate, kind of slobber in the background. So this one takes place between approximately 2003 and 2007. We have some alluding to Dick Cheney being in charge. We have some comments about George W. Bush as being that grinning, shite-eating clown, I think is what they call him. So and also we don't really refer to too much going on historically because it gives you an idea that really nothing that you see on the TV or the media and politics matters at all. The real things that matter are things that are going on behind the scenes. So that's what's kind of the most interesting.
I remember in the original book being just amused that like you never mention Ronald Reagan when you get to the 80s, but you do have the passing comment in what must be about 1980 during the election or something. This is like, yeah, I think it's really funny how we're about to have a new leader while we're doing this while we're trying to get the Star Wars up, and his last name is Ray Gunn.
Yeah, Ray Gunn, Ronald Ray Gunn, and actually it's funny because the comment is Reagan's mentioned quite a bit, I think, in book 2, but they come up with just the whole thing is supposed to be kind of a hoax, a spoof, if you will, for them to get more funding. So they just come up with this big imaginary thing that they leak to the Reagan administration, and Reagan apparently gets a hold of it and goes crazy over it, and they dub it Star Wars. And they then pretend to put a whole bunch of money into it when it's really just a funding ploy for the super secret stuff that they're doing. Yeah, and Reagan wants a big giant ray gun. So yeah, and his name is Ronald Reagan, our sci-fi president. All right, so here we go. They're about to take this. The characters here, Bob and Dr. Matthew Fassbender, are about to take this Viper out for a spin. There was a small storage unit under the seat where they put their flight boots, and then Matt sat down on the chair next to Bob. And Bob says, "I presume you don't have any pressing engagements for the next 12 hours. Well, I guess not. By the way, he's British by way of Australia. Matt found the seat uncomfortable at first, and then it started to mold to his body and adjust around him. It felt like he was laying on some kind of oozing, slowly expanding foam or gel. A head device came down and completely went around his face and covered his eyes. In a couple of moments, it had changed, and he could see out of the front of the craft. As he turned his head, he could see all around the hangar outside the ship in a virtual reality holographic display. Now, touch your middle finger on your left hand to the pad underneath it. You feel that?" Bob asked him. "Well, yes." Matt had laid his hand on the arm extension as Bob had done. "If you push lightly, that will zoom in your view, and then use your first finger to zoom back out to normal." Bob said while the vibration changed again in the craft. Matt found he was looking at a man standing at the far end of the hangar working on something on a bench. He touched his finger, and the man started to enlarge with no distortion. He kept holding it down until he could actually see a mole on the man's neck. Then he zoomed back out. "I want one of these for Hermosa Beach," Matt said. "Don't we all?" Bob started to move his hands across the controls. "Look down at your hands." Matt did, and he could see his fingers sitting over various buttons and controls. "Now, don't touch anything else, my friend, otherwise we could find ourselves having lunch in another galaxy." Matt immediately lifted both of his hands and put them on his lap. He just continued to look up and out the hangar door, which seemed to be moving towards them. "This is V1 Captain Hansen and Lieutenant Commander Fassbender preparing for a straight out over Papoose Lake on impulse." Bob moved some other controls. "You are cleared, Captain. Mark the time, 0741 hours Zulu, hack." A voice filled the cabin. "Check that, 2 chase and a pace on my ass, please." Bob waited. "We are on you, boss. Hit it, and we'll catch up." Another voice from nowhere could now be heard. "Will anyone see us leaving?" said Matt, raising his voice for no reason. "Matt, you don't need to talk over anything. In fact, a less than normal voice is better in here so you don't shatter my eardrums." Bob moved the craft out of the hangar door and turned to the left side very quickly. He moved down the ramp a quarter of a mile, and then suddenly they were flying. My head's still back there on the runway." Matt tried not to raise his voice as he was observing with his heart racing. "Well, it will be for the first couple of times you do this." Bob had the craft way out over the Pacific Ocean by now. This is the low power engine that we're using right now?" Matt was looking down at the speed indicator that was a bar graph type display. "Oh yeah, slowpoke." Bob looked around and checked the radar screen. "Chase and pace, are you clear?" "Roger that, sir." A voice again from nowhere and everywhere. "I am leaving the dome," Bob replied. "Good hunting, Cap." The voice trailed off. Matt looked up and saw the curving line where the blue sky met the blackness of space, and suddenly they were in space. Everything was silent. Matt was just there looking out like a goldfish gawking out of a bowl. So there you go. There's a sample of Sands of Time Volume 3, and I'm almost finished with I'm putting all of this together. I'm writing this book in a third-person format, because at the very end of the journals, there's so much subsidiary information that went along with it that I just thought that a first person, as the journals, the first two books were written in, just didn't really do it justice as to the story, because there's a lot of other files about and by other people and other projects that's going on. Now, meanwhile, recently, while on the here's an interesting article from by Toby McCasker, and the emerging fetish of laying alien eggs inside yourself. What? Okay. Now here he says, this is this website, which I think is interesting. Recently, while on the internet looking at weird sex things, I came upon the gushing testimony of a young woman who had discovered Primal Hardware's patented ovipositor, one of the most unusual and confronting sex toys I've ever heard of. The ovipositor is basically a big phallus that lays goopy eggs molded from gelatin in the body cavity of your choice. And fans of the ovipositor say the sensation of mushy extraterrestrial ovum slopping back out of them is a real treat. I'm not kidding. This is to lay alien eggs. The owner of
Japanese. This has to be Japanese.
I'll read you the rest of it. The owner of Primal Hardware is a man who insisted I refer to him only as Lone Wolf. This might be JP. A Native American of indeterminate age. He apparently was a builder, fast food dude, fashion model, church organist, butcher, and veterinary student at the University of New Hampshire before deciding, I want to make enormous egg-laying alien penises. He says, and this is Vice magazine, hey, Lone Wolf, most readers probably aren't familiar with how ovipositors function. How do you explain them to people? And Lone Wolf says, well, the idea is to replicate the act of being impregnated with large eggs, usually from an alien or an insect. So if you've seen the Alien movies, you'll get the picture. Many people find this sort of thing arousing. The toys are simply phallic-shaped hollow tubes that can be used to insert gelatin eggs into oneself. There is a funnel-shaped hole in the bottom to receive the eggs, which are inserted one by one, forcing them up the tube at the top. Yes, the ovipositor. How did you get involved in all this stuff? Well, I tried everything else. I had owned a restaurant and managed many other businesses and had many successes. However, in all of my jobs, I would work my way up to the top only to find a wall waiting for me there. I'm ambitious, and though I don't consider myself greedy, I always wanted to push myself for more independence and freedom to do things I wanted. And freedom is helping people insert eggs into themselves for sexual gratification? Well, let's face it. There are three things that will always sell: food, death, and sex. I tried food service and decided after managing 3 restaurants and owning one that it was the same thing day in and day out, and it didn't look like that was going to change much. Death didn't really interest me. I wanted something more fun, something that breaks the monotony of people's days and makes them spit out their coffee when you tell them what you do. I think you've comfortably managed that. Well, I wanted to push the boundaries of people's comfort levels and make them question their own erections and wet panties and let them know their fantasies do not have to go unrealized. Because everybody dreams about this every morning.
Yeah. Some fantasies, maybe you could just keep to yourself, please.
What's the demand for things like this? He says, before Primal Hardware, I was creating one-off custom commissions for people who couldn't find what they were looking for elsewhere. Ovipositors were requested several times, and when I posted, who would think of this? And when I posted YouTube videos demonstrating them, the response was impressive. Tons of people wanted them. And while this is not a fetish of my own, I saw potential for a unique product line. Now, is there any danger in putting gelatin eggs in your behind?
I watched the YouTube demonstration. This thing's awesome.
Yeah, everything.
I think we should give some away as a prize for something. I don't know.
Donate $100. Donate $100 to Revolution Radio, and we'll shove a gelatinous egg up your ass. There you go.
You have to donate $69.
Okay, all right, shut up. Let me finish the story. Everything in moderation. We're not doctors, and we're not about to comment on what is safe or unsafe to do to one's body, as it varies from person to person. I can say that I have used them many times without hurting myself, but frankly, it is up to the person using it to know their own limits. For instance, if you're allergic to gelatin, This is a perfect invention for Bill Cosby, I think, don't you think? If made properly, the eggs are firm. Come on, did Bill Cosby invent the Jell-O shooter? This is kind of the same thing. He says it's rubbery but similar to the consistency of gummy bears, and they dissolve with body heat rather quickly. Can you describe a typical customer? Well, the real answer here is simply people. I can't truly say that it's strictly one group or mindset or another kind of convenient stereotype that like this sort of thing. People get turned on by many things beyond what our respective societies would deem normal. We are niche in the sense that we're catering to some of the lesser catered to fetishes. We send our products all over the world to many different races, creeds, and cultures. I wonder, you should send these to a few celebrities, I would think, and you would basically get some quotes like, I would totally, for Christmas, I would buy this for Linda Moulton Howe. I consider myself pretty open-minded.
I just spat my tea, man. I just spat my tea.
Thank you. But I'm honestly still struggling to see the appeal in this. Can you give me one last sales pitch? Okay, here's his last sales pitch by Lone Wolf. There are different perspectives on everything, and ovipositors are no exception. Many like to envision an alien creature that wants to lay its eggs inside you. It can be a little intimidating or off-putting to those who do not fantasize about being the willing or unwilling host of alien beings inside them. It blurs the line of our own humanity to find sexual pleasure with something that is so far from human, and for some, just talking about it gets them wet. All right. There it is, kids. Order yours today. Christmas is coming. So there you go. The ovipositor. That was an article by Toby McCasker. Emerging fetish of laying alien eggs inside yourself. Boy, that's
yeah. This is Strange Universe because we really pull the boundaries further back, don't we?
I'm going to send this. I think Fat Tom Dumheiser and George Snorri, I think, need this for Christmas. What do you think?
Definitely.
Yeah, George. Tell us what it feels like to have an alien egg come out your ass, and you turn it into a radio show. All right, getting a little more serious here, going from ovipositors to the next thing. 12 signs that an imminent global financial crash is continuing. This is an article by Michael Snyder. It's on co-creating our future on planet Earth, creating unity from our human diversity. Diversity, that's another name for crime. Okay, so here we go. Michael Snyder says, and this is from Tuesday, August 11th. Did you see what just happened? The devaluation of the yuan by China triggered the largest one-day drop for that currency in the modern era. This caused other global currencies to crash relative to the U.S. dollar, and the price of oil hit a 6-year low, and stock markets all over the world were rattled. And let me tell you also, let me comment on this. The price of oil hit $44 or a little below. I think it's between $42 and $44. Price of oil hit $44. We're still paying $3.49 for it in California. Don't tell me that Jerry Brown's not behind this. Don't tell me that this whole, we didn't get our mix of summer blend, and then they're going to increase the price again because, we didn't get our mix of winter blend or whatever when they change over. But as I said, the average price of gas here in California, where we're paying more for it than anywhere else, is about $3.50. And you got oil at a 6-year low. Explain that to me, other than the fact that gas prices go up and down. Nothing affects the economy more. It's like a tax, basically. And the oil companies just get to just shrug and go, somebody burped in the Middle East. So the Dow fell. And let me tell you, there's a confluence of events that have occurred over the last week. Number one, we've had the devaluation of the Chinese yuan. Number two, the United States, people from the U.S. have actually gone into China and set them up with a stock market. Well, this is the Goldman Sachs guys. This is Goldman Sachs, this is JP Morgan, this is all these guys, and they are fleecing the Chinese. Once again, please remember, United States, we don't play fair. We went in, set them up with a financial system, and we tanked it. Next part of this is that part of what I am going to be part of, and I've been praying for this for about a year and a half, but we're in the process of putting together a film entertainment company. And the people we're working with is a former vice president of Apple who generated about $650 million for that company. And we're working on a company that, in my opinion, is possibly going to be worth $3 to $5 billion. Well, I would say $5 billion in the next 3 years, because it's the next generation level that is going to make Netflix and Hulu and HBO Go and all that stuff. It's going to make all that stuff obsolete. Now, they know that we're working on this. They know that we have this proprietary technology. We're in the process of actually putting about 40 major film projects in the tube on this, and everybody thinks that the Chinese are going to invest big money in the entertainment business next year. That's not true. I'm telling you that they are doing it now, and we are in the process of just crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's of a program that is going to not only fund all this, we're also working with the third largest comics company out of Vancouver. At the same time, we're also going to be working with Stan Lee's POW Entertainment. So I'm going to get to actually meet and work with Stan the Man Lee, which is, guided my life. Holy cow, with my comic collection, whatever else. I've never met him once. And, been influenced by all the comics and whatever else. And, I'm a big fanboy geek. I don't know.
You should get him on the show.
I would love to, but as I said, we've got to get this deal in place first. So what happened is that last week, at the same time that the Chinese yuan, the stock market's dipping, same time their currency is being devalued, same time that the Chinese Communist government is now having to step up. It's kind of weird because the Chinese go into the stock market not realizing that you can lose a huge amount of money in the stock market. When they put their money in and the money goes south, what do? Because they're communists, they turn to the government and they say, well, it's your fault. The government's all powerful. Therefore, if we lost money, you have to make it up to us. And guess what? The Chinese have stepped in. The Chinese communists have stepped in. And if they don't manage to even out their stock market, they are talking about a revolt in China where communism may end. In China, we may actually see a Berlin Wall kind of fall of the Communist Party in China because they screwed up in the stock market. Now, Disney had one page in a report. Now, please remember, Disney is a company that makes $50 billion a year. $50 billion a year. 70% of that, if not more, comes from sports. Comes from ESPN. To give you an idea, not only do they own ABC, not only do they own ESPN, but the college football championships, in other words, the semifinals and then the finals of Ohio State versus Oregon, generated more people. It generated the playoffs generated about 38 million people, and the championship game generated about 48 million people, which was, I think, the largest. It was the largest audience ever on cable, and actually the largest sports audience. Yeah, the largest audience on television recently for a non-sporting event. This was for Fox News. Was the Republican debates? The Republican debates scored ginormous numbers. We're talking about 26 plus million people actually tuned into the debates. Now that's big time money for somebody like Fox News. Even, snotty little Megyn Kelly with her, you've called women pigs. And again, if I was Donald Trump, I'd say I've called certain women pigs. I've called certain people lots of names. But I've helped women with my beauty pageants, with scholarships. Look at my wife, for goodness sakes. You're telling me I hate women? I got a supermodel that I want to have be First Lady of the United States. Oh, my God. The media is losing its mind over Trump because they don't control him. So it's really nice to see them. Not so much a fan of Donald Trump as I am a fan of the reaction that he's having in the media, because the media is used to these whipped, tamed, completely pussified candidates like the Jeb Bushes, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, I think Ron Paul dropped the ball too. He had a chance to go for the throat on Chris Christie and say, "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You want to see what a policeman looks like? You want to see what an attorney general looks like? You want to see what a guy who doesn't believe in the Constitution and just thinks we should just gather information on all of you to keep you safe? There he is. You want this fascist as president of the United States?" So Rand dropped the ball on that one. But the Dow fell when Disney announced last week that our revenues are going to drop because people are cutting the cable cord and they're going to this new distribution method, which, by the way, folks, is us. I'm right in the middle of this thing. I'm hoping this time next year, I probably won't be doing the show, but this time next year, I'm going to be worth a lot of money again. And they said, and they were called the Marks, and it was Boss Skaggs and Steve Miller. And Steve Miller's godfather was Les Paul. And actually, they gave him his first guitar, taught him how to play guitar. There may be a catastrophe here, maybe, and you guys might have to take over, but my computer, I have no plug up here, and my computer is down to 6%. And I'm going to see if I can find a plug. So once again, the Dow fell.
You can, have you got your cell phone, Sean? You could just call into the station for the rest of it.
My cell phone's kind of a joke, but anyway, the Dow fell.
Can we call you?
My challenge is that the battery on my computer is almost dead. So that's what I'm worried about. So hold on one second.
Meanwhile, Sean is playing with his battery supply. He's always having trouble with his power supply, isn't he, Steve? When you went to New York.
Yeah. He sent me on this this hunt for stuff, and so like I'm driving around New York, and it's just like, ugh, I gotta do this thing for Sean. It's like I don't mind doing errands, but he wants me to do a driving around New York errand for him.
Oh.
And it's a driving around New York errand.
Is what's it like to drive around New York? Is it fun? Sean, hang on, Sean's back. Let's not waste his battery. On you go, Sean. Let's not interrupt.
I guess he's not back.
Oh, he just made a noise and then disappeared again.
Just rushed past the computer. He'll speak up. He's good at that. Well, no, it's not fun. It's a skill. It's an art. It's a challenge, but it's not fun by any stretch, and it's time consuming. Unless you risk like breaking every type of I'm not gonna wait for the red light. I'm just gonna make the turn anyway. Kind of situation. It sucks. And Sean just disconnected.
I think his battery's gone then. So
Okay.
Hold on.
no,
Okay.
there you go. All right. Okay, everybody show.
All right. Okay.
Captain
Sorry
Bond.
about that. Okay. So the Dow fell 212 points on Tuesday. Apple's stock plummeted another 5%. Remember, Disney went down last week by 8%. Disappeared $60 billion out of the marketplace. And with Apple going down 5%, I would think that that's anywhere between another probably 30 and another 50 billion. That just disappeared, by the way, because these stocks went down. So we're hurtling towards the absolutely critical months. And I've been talking about this for a year. So you heard it from me first. You heard it from Strange Universe first, where we've been telling you about the Shemitah. We've been telling you about the entire rework of the system, that something was going to be coming down, that the Jade Helm 15 was going to be put in place because there might possibly be massive race riots that will start in the Deep South and then work their way up the East Coast. And the timing of it could not be either better for the New World Order or worse, but this movie Straight Out of Compton is coming out that's going to be all about Dr. Dre and Eazy-E and Ice Cube and Ice-T and Lipton Arnold Palmer and so this movie is going to get basically everybody riled up. Yeah, I recommend going to see this movie if you're white. Go to Compton, go to Watts, go to South Central and go see it in a Magic Johnson theater and see what happens to you. So,
Hey, I've seen 2 or 3 movies now at the Magic Johnson Theater. It's not that big of a deal.
In Connecticut, as we heard.
No, in Harlem.
Okay, all right. Well, Harlem's okay. Harlem's all upscale now, so because Bill Clinton moved his office there. So the critical months of September and October, the unraveling of the global financial system is beginning to accelerate, and at this point, it's not going to take very much to push us into a full-blown worldwide financial crisis. The following are 12 signs that indicate that a global financial crash has become even more likely after the events of the past few days. I'm not sure if I should go from 1 to 12. I like going from the back. Nah, it's okay. Number 1, the devaluation of the yuan on Tuesday, or the yuan, however you want to pronounce it, took virtually the entire planet by surprise. Not me. I told you what was going to happen. I told you that we went in and set up their stock market, that we were going to collapse it to basically start screwing the Chinese, because it's the United States. And I am telling you, we don't play well with others. We kick in your door. We fondle your daughter. We slap your wife. We wipe our asses on your pillow, and we do donuts on your lawn on our way out.
And then we charge you for it. Hello, Sean? Sean just got disconnected. JP, are you there?
No, okay, yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't have charged.
One of the big reasons why China devalued the yuan was to try to boost all of its exports. Now, China, that means by the way, we're not buying as much of China's junk as we used to. Maybe it's because they shut down 7 Walmarts to turn them into military bases for Jade Helm 15. But China's exports have now declined 8.3% in July, and global trade overall is falling at a pace that we have not seen since the last big recession. And when was that? 7 years ago. Jubilee, Shemitah, etc. Number 3, now that the Chinese have devalued their currency,
Sean's disconnected again.
Oh. Well, I wonder if we could find the article he's reading. We've got about 20 minutes out of the show. So, any ideas?
I'm not
who that might be by?
He didn't express a concern over his battery. And so, I mean, like, is he home or is he somewhere? I mean, he's with his wife.
It sounds like
his wife.
He's walking around, and he's giving him. Melissa's giving him food.
Right.
And so they're out at some event.
So yeah, I believe he's home.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think they're at Disneyland because he sounds like he's outside. I can hear the wind blow. He's not got his usual headset on.
Right. So he's plugged in.
This is very interesting for the audience. Let's not.
Yeah.
He is talking about the Shemitah year and how it's basically. He said the other day, if it doesn't happen consciously, it will happen anyway. Kind of thing. It's like a force of nature. Oh, there we lost him completely.
Yeah. No, and I'd agree with that. I mean, look at what's going on in the social atmosphere of the world right now, and even in the country.
Well, it's everything's, what isn't going on, and what the thing that it just seems to be is like overwhelm. It's like a complete and total apparent collapse of everything. And everything's going to trigger somebody because not everybody's completely healed. Even people who have almost completely healed get triggered. You get angry for good reason sometimes.
Right.
And you lose it because of that. So, it's a minefield, and we have to be so careful not to get tripped out on something that is going to just take you away from being focused and doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is responding to the moment. It's only those moments when you can't, when you get overwhelmed, that you lose the plot. Yeah.
And I was sharing with my audience earlier about a whole thing where I was talking with a friend of mine who he was not a new agey kind of guy, but he did sort of feel like, hey, I'd love for this I would have loved to have had this 2012 thing give me superpowers, and he pseudo believed it just looking at like the interesting information about cosmic rays from space. All right, there we are.
What the hell just happened? But there it is. Okay. Where was I? Okay, so sorry if I'm repeating myself here, but obviously we lost everybody. So this is the first time. The price of oil just closed at a brand new 6-year low. And I was talking about Bond King. You guys know where I left off? Or where we got cut off for whatever reason?
I'm hearing new information out of your mouth right now, so just keep going.
Welcome back. Captain on deck.
All right, so number 5. Sorry if I'm repeating. Number 5. The price of oil just closed at a brand new 6-year low. When the price of oil started to decline back in late 2014, a whole lot of people were proclaiming that this would be a good thing for the U.S. economy. Well, now you can see just how wrong they were. At this point, the price of oil has already fallen to a level that is going to be absolutely nightmarish for the global economy if it stays there. Just consider what Jeff Gundlach had to say about this in December. He says, quote, back in December 2014, Bond King Jeff Gundlach had a serious warning for the world if oil prices got to $40 a barrel. I hope it does not go to 40. As I said, we're $4 away from that, he said in a presentation, because then something is very, very wrong with the world, not just the economy. The geopolitical consequences could be, to put it bluntly, terrifying. Now, I don't know why Gundlach is saying this. Gundlach is saying this, and the Saudi Arabians have said, we're just going to start pumping more oil. When the Saudi Arabians decided the price of oil was going to go up, that left the market wide open for the Russians to come in and have them tap into their oil in Siberia. Basically, the new King Salman in Saudi Arabia has just said, look, we're going to start pumping oil. The price of oil, he said this months ago, the price of oil is going to be $40 a barrel. Get used to it. Number 7, in a recent article, I explained that the collapse in commodity prices that we are witnessing right now is eerily similar to what we witnessed just before the stock market crash of 2008. On Tuesday, things got even worse for commodities as the price of copper closed also at a brand new 6-year low. My advice is, once again, these lows in commodities prices are a boon opportunity for anybody that wants to get into copper, silver, gold, platinum. All these things that are going down right now are look, it's the lull before the storm. At some point within the next year, you're going to be able to take your baubles and jangles and bingles and bling and go buy a house with it. Number 9. Just before the financial crisis, well, let's go back to this. Number 8, the South American debt crisis of 2015 continues to intensify. Brazil's government bonds have been downgraded to just one level above junk status, and the approval rating of Brazil's president has fallen into single digits. Number 9, just before the financial crisis of 2008, a surging U.S. dollar put an extraordinary amount of stress on emerging markets. Now that is happening again. Emerging market stocks just hit a brand new 4-year low on Tuesday thanks to the stunt that China just pulled. Number 10, things are not so great in the United States either. The ratio of wholesale inventories to sales in the United States just hit the highest level since the last recession. What that means is there's a whole lot of stuff sitting in warehouses out there that is waiting to be sold in an economy that is rapidly slowing down. Number 11, speaking of slowing down, the growth of consumer spending in the United States has just plummeted to multi-year lows. And number 12, deep inside, most of us can feel what is coming. According to the Gallup poll, the number of Americans that believe that the economy is getting worse is almost 50% higher than the number of Americans that believe the economy is getting better. So things are lining up perfectly for a perfect storm, a global financial crisis and a major recession beginning in the fall and winter of 2015. But just because things look like they will happen a certain way does not necessarily mean that they will. All it takes is a single event of some sort to change everything. So there you go. There's an analysis of this. That's actually a pretty anyway. All right, getting back on the health food kick, if you will. There's a Himalayan supplement that's so nutrient rich that it's known as the nectar of the gods. And because we're here on Strange Universe and we like all kinds of things, you've probably heard of this before, but the Himalayan mountains have a sacred history that's closely tied to Tibetan Buddhism and other religions that have shaped many of the cultures in South Asia. And within this mountain range, believed to be the abode of gods and goddesses, from the cracks in between the rocks oozes a tar-like substance that's called shilajit, which means nectar of God. And the oral history of how indigenous tribes in the Himalayas found shilajit and why they decided to consume it changes based on who's telling the tale. But over time, it's become a coveted medicine throughout Asia and is a common ingredient in Ayurvedic treatments. Shilajit is essentially comprised of fresh modified remnants of humus and the characteristics organic constituents of soil. This thick black resin is formed out of over 6,500 species of ancient plants that decomposed and compacted under the weight of these ginormous mountains. Shilajit benefits, for example. Scientific study on shilajit has shown that it is one of the most nutrient-dense substances in the world, with at least 85 minerals in ionic form, as well as triterpenes, humeric acid, and fulvic acid. Now, the potent source of vitamins and trace minerals is a powerful adaptogen, helping to protect against all types of mental and physical stress and normalizing the body. Other nutrients it contains include naturally occurring humic and fulvic acids, two of nature's most potent detoxifiers of heavy metals and other pollutants that disrupt the natural function of the body and are quite rare to boot, as well as ellagic acid, fatty acids, and plant sterols. As a result, shilajit has a harmonizing effect on the hormonal endocrine system and slows down the aging process in general. Now, in a quote from John Dillicard, shilajit was described as a yoga vahi, meaning that whatever is taken with it will be enhanced due to shilajit's ability to bring any nutrient into solution and drive it into the cell walls. Okay. Shilajit could be a general tonifier of the body. Some of the powerful benefits include, for example, general anti-aging, Shilajit slows down the aging process because it rejuvenates each cell by driving oxygen and nutrients into the cell, and serves as a natural antioxidant. It also enforces the body's immune support system, helps bones, enhances memory. It's an anti-inflammatory. Shilajit is useful anti-inflammatory, along with turmeric as an example, and it's an agent capable of addressing tissue damage and thus accelerating healing. Anti-disease, due to its traditional nutritional richness.
We lost Sean again.
Oh, that's funny. Because I haven't heard him for several minutes. I can't hear him at all. But can I hear you?
Yeah.
You can hear me, yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know why you are having an issue. I understand why Sean's having an issue if he's on somebody's Wi-Fi.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm having issues. I have issues all the time. I've just got issues, man. Yeah, I'm just working on my issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, got a few issues. You got any issues?
Who doesn't have it?
Steve Travesty has issues.
Yeah.
What kind of issue? Yeah, it's interesting, the word issue.
Monetary issues, state issues, usually they're one and the same.
Mm. But yeah, I still can't hear Sean at all.
Well, Sean's now off again, disconnected.
There he gone. There he's gone, dropped. Okay, so so trying to keep some sort of continuity of consciousness. I was looking for the thing, and it was a completely different number 5, so I didn't find the same list. But yeah, well, somebody in the chat room saying, how do you know it's this one? Well, because someone has been talking almost every day, saying 7 years ago was 2008. 2008 was the financial collapse. 7 years before that, September the 11th, 2001, there was a financial issue just before that where George Bush announced that there was a missing $2.3 trillion from the Pentagon. And then the next day, there was 9/11, and nobody remembered the missing dollars from the Pentagon. So it's happened before. And so we're looking, and it's happening again. You see? There's another heist happening. And it's a fleecing. It's like there's enough wool for everybody, so if we can clip you off.
Yeah.
They talk about having a haircut, don't they?
It's kind of hard for me to have sympathy for anybody who doesn't realize what's about to happen or whatever. It's either that or everybody knows that it could happen and they're still doing it because they do have no choice. But if it happens, there will be repercussions. Like, I can see it being more like that. It's just like, yeah, we're about to get ripped off, but we're aware we're about to get ripped off. If they actually rip us off, they're going to be in the wrong, and we're going to be prepared to effectively prosecute them. I can imagine it that way. Like, if people were simply prepared to prosecute because they believe in this system and they believe in, whatever benefit this system gives them and everybody else, then I can see it going that way, possibly, because I don't know how you get fooled this badly this particular moment.
So yeah, Sean's lost his signal. It's a funny thing. It's people say there is no cyclicity, and yet over and over again there is cyclicity, obvious cyclicity. 7-year cycles, 20-year cycles, all of these things, they just keep happening. So why do people insist that things are the same every day? Why do people insist that the solar system is a very calm place where nothing ever happens? Why do people insist that the Earth is always the same size? Yeah. Right.
Well, I mean, but the thing is that they're trying to get away from that in the mainstream where everything, everything's the same until they say that it's not. So it's like the universe is all, and our solar system is wild and crazy and everything like that, but everything is separated by vast distances. So that way it gives us plenty of time to scare you when we feel like it. And why? Because the solar system is huge and it's in all directions, and we missed this one until it was far too late to report it.
Well, anyway, we're right at the end of the show now, and so there's no point in Sean trying to get back in.
Probably.
All right, he did try that, but now he's busy. Oh, weird. He's up and down. It just kind of
No, he's not.
Oh no, it's one of those. This is almost happening. But I think it was fascinating, that little sneak preview into the Sands of Time Book 3. That may have a working title of, what was that? Dog Ball's Crazy?
Right. Sean's telling us he's left the building, so no, he's absolutely not going to be able to reconnect.
Yeah, well, it's only 1 minute away from the end of the show, so. So I think I'd just like to express some thanks for that little excerpt, and I look forward to reading the rest of it, as we all do. I look forward to the TV show, man.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, yes, it's all very good. It's I just have a particular interest in time traveling Nazis. That's just, I don't know why.
Well, you could put Nazis in front of thing. It's like I'm waiting for Sharknado 4 Nazis and sharks or whatever, and somebody's making a film that he's crowdfunding now called what's he calling it, Sky Nazis or something, and it's it's just it's cyborg sharks that Nazis are riding on, and they're attacking people in planes and stuff, and they're zombie Nazis. They're zombie Nazis on cyborg sharks that fly around. He cut himself a little GoFundMe trailer for it, and he wants to make one of those over the top stupid movies. Anyway.